How safe is someone in the arms of the person they love the most? Harper Linwood's keys clicked against the worn tile of her apartment hallway. Streetlights splashed her shadow across the cracked concrete, long and trembling. The clock on the wall blinked 11:17 p.m., a time that would never tick normally again. Mason Reddick leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. The faint hum of a neighbor's fridge punctuated the silence between them. Harper's hand hesitated on the doorknob, fingers white, as if the lock itself weighed her down. She had spent years building a future, a life she thought she could trust. Tonight, every step felt like a promise teetering on the edge. And Mason wasn't just the threat. He was the storm already inside her home. On-screen caption, main suspect, Mason Reddick. They argued quietly at first, words clipped, tight like snapped wires. Harper's eyes flicked toward her phone, buzzing relentlessly, ignored calls flashing. Celeste, Joanna? A small coffee mug trembled on the counter as Mason's shadow loomed closer. Her backpack, zipped shut, still on the chair where she left it that morning. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, sterile but sharp. Something was off. A torn receipt from the diner lay on the floor, ink smudged, time-stamped 8:43 p.m. Her last shift, her last safe place. Why didn't anyone notice the sudden quiet? Why did her friends' texts go unanswered? Her sister's calls unanswered? Every sound she had relied on, the hum of life around her, now felt like a countdown. Mason smiled briefly, almost apologetic. His hand lingered on the counter. Harper's lips pressed together, a soft inhale of fear she refused to show. The moment she thought she could escape, even a step toward the door, Mason's gaze froze her in place. A future she had worked tirelessly for wasn't threatened by a stranger. It was being stolen by the person who promised love, who promised safety. Who can you trust when love hides danger? Harper's phone slipped from the edge of the counter. A soft thud. A missed call blinking on the screen. Joanna? Are you okay? And just like that, the night swallowed her voice, but it didn't swallow the questions. Her future, her dreams, now hung on what the next moments would reveal. How much hope can one person carry before it becomes invisible to everyone around them? Harper Linwood sat on the edge of her small apartment couch, fingers tracing the seams of a worn notebook. Streetlights painted stripes across the walls, like shadows waiting for her to slip. 7:42 p.m. Just hours before her world would tilt forever. She brewed a cup of coffee, the steam curling into the cold apartment air. Her textbook sprawled across the table, each page marked with colored tabs. A roadmap to the future she worked for. Celeste's last text lingered. Call me if you need me. Harper never did. Every plan she made, every shift she took, every extra hour at the diner, it wasn't just work. It was survival. A future she fought for, slowly slipping out of reach, unnoticed. Mason entered, casual smile masking the tension in his shoulders. He commented on her schedule, her friends, her habits, little questions that felt harmless, but weren't. A calendar on the fridge marked her shifts and study sessions. The markings almost seemed to mock her. Harper's eyes lingered on the window, on the quiet street, wondering if anyone could see the worry hiding behind Mason's charm. Her favorite mug, chipped and cracked, sat on the counter. A subtle reminder of routines she couldn't break, even when fear whispered. She smiled at him, careful, polite, practiced. Inside, a pulse of dread surged. Someone she trusted could undo every plan she had spent years building. The person closest to her was also the one most capable of betrayal. A sudden knock at the door. Faint, hesitant. She froze, coffee halfway to her lips. Harper's heart raced, the room feeling smaller, the walls closer. And in that moment, her careful world, her future, hung by a thread she couldn't see. How quickly can trust turn into terror when the person you love becomes the danger? Harper Linwood's apartment was silent, the street lamp casting long, jagged shadows across the floor. 11:03 p.m. A night that would stretch into something unrecognizable. Harper Linwood, alone, vulnerable, focused on tomorrow. Mason leaned against the counter, eyes fixed on her movements like he could read her thoughts. Harper set down her backpack, hands trembling slightly, coffee forgotten. The hum of the fridge seemed louder than usual, punctuating the space between them. Every word he spoke, every glance, carried weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying all along. Fear wasn't sudden, it was accumulation. The person closest to her was quietly closing in on control. He questioned her about her day, her friends, even her studies, casual yet pointed. Her phone buzzed on the table. "Celeste, you okay? Call me." She didn't answer. A coat left draped over a chair. A detail she noticed but couldn't act on fast enough. The apartment felt smaller. The walls pressed closer. Shadows seemed to move when she didn't. A loud sigh from Mason, almost playful, almost threatening. Harper realized there was no one coming to notice, no one coming to intervene. Her future, the life she built herself, was already being chipped away, quietly, invisibly, by someone she trusted. A soft thump outside the door. She froze, heart hammering. Mason's gaze shifted, calm, unreadable. And Harper knew nothing in her life would ever feel safe again. How long can someone vanish from sight before the world even notices? Harper didn't answer calls. 8:17 a.m. The apartment felt emptier than before, shadows lingering where light once reached. Joanna Linwood checked her sister's messages again. Unanswered. Celeste left a voicemail, her voice shaky, pleading for a reply. Mason smiled politely when asked about Harper, brushing it off like nothing had changed. Every missed call, every ignored text, made Harper's absence heavier. No one saw the warning signs, no one acted, and fear quietly grew in the spaces she once filled. Neighbors noticed the door stayed shut. The lights flickered intermittently, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Mason made excuses, walked past the building with casual ease. Joanna felt a gut punch. Something wasn't right, but what could she prove? Harper's wallet is still on the counter. Her shoes are untouched. Small signs mounting. Routines interrupted. Life paused. And yet the world moved on as if nothing had changed. Why didn't anyone notice? Joanna noticed a note tucked under the doormat. Her handwriting? No. The edges were worn, the message cryptic, and Harper's absence suddenly screamed louder than it had in 3 silent days. What happens when the trail of someone's life vanishes, but a single clue refuses to stay hidden? Officer Blake Harmon arrived at the apartment, a sense of unease pressing into the hallways. Joanna met him at the door, face pale. Her wallet, her shoes, everything is here, she said, voice tight. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee, her textbooks stacked neatly, like Harper had stepped out for a moment and never returned. The absence of chaos felt unnatural. Every routine item in place screamed that something deliberate had disrupted her life. A future she worked for, now hanging by a thread. Mason appeared again, calm, too calm. He answered questions with rehearsed precision, yet every pause seemed like it carried secrets. Blake noticed small details. The backpack zipped tight, a notebook open to a page Harper had been highlighting. All untouched, all still present. A message notification on Harper's laptop, timestamped midnight, unread. It wasn't from a friend. It was from Mason. Joanna stared at the screen, and in that moment the investigation took its first real turn. A subtle thread hinting that the person closest to Harper might not be who she believed. What do you do when the person you trust most is the one lying the loudest? Detective Frank Calhoun entered the interrogation room, calm, patient, but with every word, tension filled the air. Mason sat upright, hands folded, pretending composure. Frank slid Harper's texts across the table, highlighting unanswered messages, small pleas ignored. Mason's calm facade trembled subtly when confronted. Every carefully rehearsed answer began to crumble under the weight of truth. The person Harper loved most had been hiding more than anyone could imagine. Mason claimed she left voluntarily. Frank asked about the day she vanished, the details that didn't line up. Security footage timestamps contradicted his story. Celeste's statements added another layer. Last seen Harper anxious, tense, confiding fears only someone close would know. Frank leaned forward, quiet but piercing. "Why didn't you call anyone? Why leave her alone?" Mason hesitated. Not long enough to explain, just long enough to confirm suspicion. A tiny notebook fell from Mason's pocket, pages filled with notes only he could have written. The room went still. Every word Harper had spoken, every small detail of her life, all pointed in one chilling direction. How do you face the truth when the one who betrayed you sits across the courtroom smiling? The courtroom was quiet, heavy. Every breath weighted with anticipation. Joanna Linwood clutched her sister's favorite scarf, knuckles white. Celeste sat beside her, trembling, her notebook filled with Harper's last words. Detective Frank Calhoun observed Mason, noting every micro-expression, every slip in the story that led them here. The evidence spoke louder than his lies. Texts, timestamps, and witness accounts formed a chain too strong to ignore. For the first time in 2 weeks, Harper's absence demanded justice. The jury heard Celeste testify about Harper's anxiety the night she vanished. Joanna recounted small but crucial details. The missed calls, Mason's unusual routines, his subtle threats. Frank presented security footage and timestamps, showing Mason's inconsistencies with precision. The judge's gavel came down. The jury returned guilty. Mason Reddick was sentenced to 25 years. The justice Harper deserved finally delivered. Joanna exhaled, tears falling freely. Celeste wiped her eyes, softly whispering Harper's name. The courtroom held its breath as Harper's life, erased for so long, was remembered, her story no longer silent. Justice for Harper Linwood. Her voice may have been taken, but her story will echo. Subscribe to the Veil of Secret, where we honor those whose lives demand to be remembered, one truth at a time.